Hey guys, it's Heather. I wanted to come on and make a really quick intro to this Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis session that I'm about to share with you. Just another really, really good one. I'm working with another Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis practitioner that I consider to be a friend. We had our first sessions together. So way back when we first started to become practitioners, she was my first BQH session, and I think it may have been hers. I'm not quite sure, but I was right there at the beginning with her. So we decided to get together for another session yesterday, and it does not disappoint. We talk a lot about parallel realities and portals and stepping into portals and into parallel realities and multiple dimensions. And it's a bit of a mind bender, but I loved it. I loved it. I can't get enough. So wanted to do an intro because I wanted to let you know at sort of towards the middle or the end of the session, the internet connection started going a little crazy on us, and it would drop out for a few seconds. So I went through and I tried to edit out the gaps because I didn't want you to have to sit there and wait for her to start talking again. So there's going to be some weird breaks in there, like she'll be talking and then it's going to catch up in a weird place. You might think there's some words missing or some information missing, and there is. I did not want, when I realized that this was going to be a continual thing that was going to happen, I didn't want to continue to ask her, could you repeat yourself? Can you repeat yourself? I wanted her to stay in that flow. So we just lost a little bit, but it's just tiny pieces of information. So I just want to let you know, so you're not going, where did that go? Or how did she skip to this part? That's what's going on. And one more thing that I think is really cool about this session, Alexandra and her husband have been trying to have a baby for a little bit. And in her first session, we worked a lot on some endometriosis issues that she had. And she's got a cyst that we did some work on back in the first session. And the guides took a look at all that, and it looks okay. But the cool thing is that she got to connect with the baby, the spirit, the soul of the baby who's going to be coming in for her. And this baby, they're saying, is a very high energy, like an old soul or even a higher dimensional soul. So when you have so much energy, when you're that higher dimensional being, to try to pack yourself in a human, dense, heavy, carbon-based body, I can't imagine. And so the baby, we see in this session that the baby is preparing itself to come in. And so they said it was sort of practicing being in the fetal position and practicing what it's going to be like to be in the womb. And it sounded like it's not really looking forward to that part of the birth process. So they also said that this soul will probably not spend the entire time in the womb, that it will come and go. And I was aware of that. I've heard other sessions where they talked about spirits before they come into the body to, come into the world. It's up to them. They can come and spend the whole time there, but most of them don't want to. They're like, we'll just wait till we're stuck here and we have to come through. But just really cool to see that. I know that gave her so much hope, because they've been waiting for a while and may have a little bit longer to wait while this baby gets ready to make its grand entrance. But I thought you might enjoy that as well. So much information. I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to leave Alexandra's information. I'm not sure if she's going to be doing quantum healing hypnosis sessions anytime soon, but she has a YouTube channel and some other things that I'll leave below if you want to connect with her. She's just amazing, and she brings through just some really cool information. So just wanted to share. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Fully connect with the space around you.
There's a a fireplace
Mm-hmm.
to my left, and there's a nice fire going. And it seems like I'm small.
Mm-hmm. You feel small.
Yeah.
Do you feel male or female? Do you get that sense?
Mm. I think female.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I must be a child because it seems like I'm looking up to everybody. There's like a woman sitting at a table. It's fairly crude table, like hand hewn table. Like also seems thick and oak and like more like just a bench on either side, like not really like chairs.
Mm-hmm. As you tune
Um,
into this body, how old do you feel? Do you get a number that comes to mind?
3 maybe.
Okay. Very good.
And I mean, I think this woman who's sitting at the table, she seems like my mother in this lifetime. She she seems happy and is laughing, and she has like curly hair, like kind of golden brown
Can you
curly
see
hair.
can you see her eyes?
Yeah, she's not looking directly at me, but
Do you recognize her
yeah, I see.
soul in the life of Alexandra? Does she look familiar to you?
I feel like this could be my mother from this lifetime as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Very good. So tell me more about what you see around you, what's happening in the scene.
Um, she seems to be laughing about something, and I'm just looking over to see who she's talking to or laughing with.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like there's a man there. Seems like must be my father and her husband.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he must have like just told a joke or something that she's laughing at. I mean, he doesn't seem to be laughing, but she thought it was funny. Um,
And as you tune into yourself, what kind of emotions are you feeling at the moment?
and I just seem to be observing
Mm-hmm.
um, this the fire's blazing, and it seems to be, I mean, not a huge fireplace, but fairly big. And it
Mm-hmm.
seems to be kind of a communal room. It seems like there's another person here, like a sibling,
Mm-hmm.
like an older boy, like maybe 8 years old or something like that.
Very good. Tell me what else you notice. What else stands out to you?
It almost feels like this is like a tavern or something, but it's but I don't think so. But it
Mhm.
kind of has that feel.
If you were to tune into the time period that you're looking at, do you get a sense of when this might be? Does anything come to mind?
It's strange because I don't feel it's here on Earth.
Mm.
Like it feels like it could be, like if you just kind of like glanced at a picture of it or something, you'd be like, oh, sure, why not? But it feels more.
So just allow yourself to connect in with the energy of this scene, allowing your inner knowing to strengthen. And if you were to view the scene and ask if it's on Earth or another planet, what comes through for you? Or another time, another reality?
Mm, they're saying this is another dimension
Mm.
that even though there's like a physical world, it can also be on another planet,
Mhm.
but also in another dimension. um it's it's a world where, like, if you look outside the window has panes of glass, um and outside the window are like rolling green hills that um like it's really lush and green.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure why we need the fire if it's so lush and green. I guess it's a
Mhm.
little cool.
Mhm.
um but it seems like there's a lot of rolling hills and occasionally a tree here and there. This is like a cottage house,
Mhm.
and it feels a lot like something you'd see in the countryside in England.
Mhm.
Um, but they're saying it's not England. They're saying what you have to understand is that there are multiple planets and multiple dimensions where similar places pop up, where similar architecture appears, where
Mhm.
similar people appear, that there are a lot of human types of beings
Mhm.
elsewhere, that it's not just here, and that as different beings in human form um, were created to live on different planets and in different dimensions, that many similar timelines occurred simultaneously, but with like various tiny little differences. So, so people and parallel lives seem to be operating in similar frequencies in multiple places, multiple timelines, and multiple dimensions, with very little tiny changes. So essentially, people's journeys are essentially your journey is going to be played out again and again with just tiny little changes each time. And so that's why you can observe a little cottage house in a place that looks very similar to Earth but isn't Earth. It's just sometimes different things will be happening, so oh gosh, there's like a lot coming in. It's hard to like
You're doing great.
listen to all of it.
Okay.
They're reminding me that, like, remember when there's this some people call it like a Mandela effect, and some people say it's and I can't think of the country this person, but there was, I don't know, the story of the guy who came in to the airport and showed his passport and was like from a country that like didn't exist at all. And then they were like point out on the map where you're from, and he pointed it out on the map, and the map looked similar to him. There was like, but all the places, like essentially the the map of the earth looked the same to him as far as the land, but the countries and all the places and names and borders were different than what he knew. They're saying this is the explanation for that. So essentially, like, and with this guy, he disappeared like the next day. They like locked him in a hotel room, and then he was like gone. So he was kind of like traveling through dimensions. And this is exactly what the explanation is that people can sometimes slip in and out of different dimensions, and they can end up in a very similar place, a very similar location, and they're like, gosh, this looks exactly like where I'm from, but then places and names are changed, and different people live there or whatever. So
are you
that's the
saying
explanation with this.
Are you saying that so we can have, as a soul, we can have parallel lifetimes where maybe there's a part of our soul living in one experience and a part of our soul living in another one? Is it from the same soul that we can live in these multiple dimensions? Or explain how that works a little more, if you can.
So yes, so definitely you're living in all of the dimensions all at once. But when so your oversoul is able to tap into all of these and experience all of them. But what we're experiencing as playing this one character here, you can also sometimes just slip into dimensions. So this is a little bit different as far as like, the story of the guy who did slip into, our reality and then disappeared again, is that wasn't really like his oversoul like doing that. It was just like sometimes that slip can occur.
What causes that?
Good question.
Is it something that we do or something that just happens naturally?
They're saying it can happen for a couple of different reasons. So sometimes someone just unknowingly can slip into a portal, and there's certain like gateways on the planet where you can literally like be on a walk and like you just walk through it, and then you're in a different dimension and you didn't even realize it happened. And then sometimes it can be like they're saying like powerful shamans are able to do this by will, Like they can actually, they don't even necessarily need to be at a special location in order to do it. They can just literally, go into a meditative state and, go to different dimensions themselves. So that's another way. So yeah, there's like an accidental way that you don't necessarily like decide, like you're not consciously deciding, but they're saying even if you're not consciously deciding, your higher self is going to is deciding, like it is a decision if you do have that experience to slip into another dimension.
So if you're living here on Earth, and let's say you're in the woods and you walk through one of these portals and you end up in an alternate dimension, and is that going to be the similar reality, or can you just come out in a completely different experience where you have no idea what's going on?
Yeah, so they're saying it can happen multiple ways. There's really like endless ways it can happen. It can be that like you literally go through the portal and you're in a parallel reality that's like basically almost exactly what you're living right now, but like um there might just be a very small little change. You might come home and find that there's another object. Oh, that's making sense. There so yeah, it can be like you would just find like something like you never had before, and suddenly it appears. This just happened with us, with a portrait of my mother that
Mm.
appeared in our house that no one knew existed. Like literally never, no one ever had seen it, and it was found, and it they're saying that's the type of thing that can happen, that it's very subtle, but like suddenly something appears
So
and
was it that the
you're
I'm
in a
sorry,
different dimension.
was it the object that came forward into your reality, or was it that Alexandra stepped into an alternate reality?
That's a good question. Let's ask about this. So, when this portrait came into the reality, this was after we um, had our summer solstice ritual, and they're saying that that was actually a portal that was created
Mm.
by that ritual. And that's why it was a group experience, and why no one had seen this portrait before or had been aware of it um, at all. That it, they're saying that like when a portal is created in a ritual, that it can lead to a huge group transformation. Like a whole group of people can change reality, essentially.
Mm.
It can be really powerful, and this is just a really small example of what can be done to shift into another reality. And in this case, everyone or no one had remembered or known of this portrait. This was like a new object. So it wasn't necessarily like this new object had come into the reality.
Mhm.
It was that this group of people had shifted into another reality.
Okay. So I sort of see timelines very similar, and you can help me to understand this. we have multiple timelines that we create, and those timelines seem to be very similar in nature, but maybe have those slight differences. So, what's the difference between the multiple timelines that we have access to and these parallel realities? Is there a difference, or are they sort of similar in nature?
So when we talk about timelines, we're talking about what may happen in your linear future time as we experience it here in this body. So with a timeline, we know that there are multiple timelines we can step into. So the difference is really just a matter of semantics, because timelines and parallel realities are essentially the same, but it's how we're looking at it from our linear time view. So like a parallel reality, all realities are happening simultaneously without time, essentially. But since we live in time and abide by the rules of time because we've decided we would agree to linear time for this lifetime, when we talk about timelines, we're essentially talking about what's going to be happening in our linear future and which timeline we want to tap into per se and live, even though we'll essentially be living all of those timelines. But it's just which one we want to focus on in this moment.
So, would you say that there are multiple versions of Alexandra existing in these multiple dimensions or multiple parallel realities? Or is it that her consciousness is focused in on one particular experience?
So definitely all of them are happening simultaneously and constantly. But yes, the consciousness that she chooses at this time is to focus on one. Although if anyone wants to shift from one to another, it's doable. It's it's happening all the time anyway, as you make different decisions. But one can actually focus on shifting that reality. And and like with the example of the summer solstice ritual that actually created a shift, even though that wasn't what the plan was for the ritual. You can even do this in ritual and make it the plan to shift the reality and transform.
So interesting. I'm just thinking, I have so many questions, I don't even know which one to ask. So are there multiple versions as well? I've heard different things about the earth. If we have multiple versions of ourselves, are there also multiple versions of earth existing in these parallel experiences, or how does that work? I know you said in the beginning that there were other planets that maybe were very similar to Earth. So is that how it works? They're different planets, or?
So different planets are different than different Earths. And each planet has different versions of itself. So, and different dimensions within those different versions. So that's, I think, where it becomes a little confusing. So, first of all, we have many Earth-like planets that can sustain human type existence, or let's call it carbon-based existence. As there can be, multiple animals and plants and things like that. And then there are other types of existence, silicon existence, and all kinds of different existences. But since we're most familiar with carbon base and human life and animal and plant life, let's just focus on that at the moment. So there are many Earth-like planets that support similar type of beings that we have here, and plant life and all kinds of things. And, water, rivers and oceans and, mountains and volcanoes, all of it. So many, many Earth-like planets. So you have that first of all. But that's all happening in this reality. But then there are like parallel realities, right? Where there are multiple versions of Earth, multiple versions of these other planets, and tiny similarities and tiny differences between each of these realities. But then the further you go away from each difference, so like say like the next difference over is the one where you have a portrait appear, right? And you're like, everything else is the same, but then this portrait appears. Okay. But then you go like 86 realities over and it's like maybe there isn't, certain countries that you recognize anymore, and they can be completely different. The map is completely different because there have been so many changes that, maybe Canada never existed and it's still part of the British Empire. You know what I mean? Just like things like that could be, there's all these possibilities, and people are coming up with these possibilities every single day, and it's almost like they're tapping into them when like fictional stories are created. They're tapping into them. Think about like Man in the High Castle and the alternate reality where, the Germans won World War II and what that looks like. So that reality did happen, in a reality, the Germans won World War II. And it spurred multiple different realities beyond that. So there's so many possibilities. And the fact is that you can shift into any of them accidentally or willingly or purposefully.
So this is what creates the Mandela effect that we experience. Is it that we're shifting into different realities and then all of the sudden things that you thought were one way, they sort of become different, or you have new things in your reality? Are you just tuning into multiple versions of everything?
Right. And this is why people have group experiences with the Mandela effect. And that's why it becomes so interesting and controversial, right? Because there's so many groups of people experiencing the same thing. So you're having groups who are shifting at the same time. And they're almost tapped into, it's a collective conscious that they're tapped into, realizes that they can all actually tap into everyone else's thoughts in that group that shifted. But they're just choosing not to most of the time. But as they awaken, they'll realize that they can tap into this collective consciousness, this collective that can become very powerful if they really choose to operate at that frequency. If they choose to tap into this frequency, they could actually do really amazing things. But instead, they're just like, oh, Mandela effect.
So is that something that we will learn how to do as we shift and more begin to awaken and tap into these higher frequencies? Will we have that inner knowing of how to move through these realities?
Absolutely. they're saying it's actually really easy. It's easier than people think. People just believe it's hard because they don't understand it, but they're like, it's just like using the internet, essentially. It's like really easy. And it's funny to them because they're like, you guys figured out the internet, but you can't figure out how to just tap into the ether in between your own minds. And instead you're using the internet. Like, to them, it's laughable. They're like, you don't even need the internet. You can actually just tap right in.
So if they were to give us just some step-by-step instructions, if we wanted to try to tap into shifting our reality, what would they suggest?
Well, they're saying like that ritual experience is a really good, easy start, so doing a ritual is, you can actually do a ritual just to actually purposely shift your reality.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that, and it can be really simple. They're saying ritual isn't, necessary. I mean, you could just literally go into a meditative state. They're saying for most people, because we're human,
Mm-hmm.
we feel like we need extra things,
Mm-hmm.
like people feel like they need to carry their crystals around, or you know what I mean, and do
Mm-hmm.
things. So like
The
you don't
tools.
actually, right, like you don't
Mm-hmm.
actually need anything. But they're saying like using all those tools, it, it's totally fine, and it's if that helps implement it, if it makes it easier, then use them. But they're saying like in this example of the ritual, what was important, and you can certainly do a solitary ritual, but they keep bringing me back to that summer solstice ritual,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that there were multiple people involved. Oh, and dogs. The dogs were there. Multiple people and dogs. And, that we cast the circle, that we called in the elements, we called in, you know, we called in source, we called in the universe, we called in the goddess energy. And everybody spoke at the ritual. So although I was leading the ritual, everyone spoke at the ritual, and we did manifestation work. And of course we, honored my mother, and, had, everyone spoke about her, and then we moved into manifestation. And
So is that because
everybody
everyone?
prepared. There was a lot of thought put into it.
Yes.
Sorry, you cut out.
No, yeah, and I think our internet connection is just a little. Sometimes it sticks a little bit. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was asking, is it the focused attention or the focused intention of everyone that is creating that, or is it simply because they're doing that ritual, they're shifting their frequency, which helps them to connect to one of these different realities?
Yeah, so they're saying it's all of that and more. So first, what we had done in preparation is that I asked everybody before we even went out to the ritual space, before we even started anything, I said, first, I had a pad of paper, and I said, okay, everybody write down, you know, um, what they want to speak about with my mom passing. So everybody
Mhm.
write that down on one paper. And then on another paper, because it was the summer solstice, so we wanted to tap into that energy. We wanted to manifest and create. And I said, everybody then write down on another piece of paper what you want to manifest in your life. So so the first was the intention. The intention was really important, because if you just haphazardly do a ritual, it's not going to have the same effect. So they're saying, because everyone put in a lot of intention, and then we all were together in that same intention in the ritual, and then calling in this energy, and everyone was very present, that that energy really created a portal. And yeah, so it's intention and attention and focusing in that frequency. So yes, one could do it by themselves, certainly, but they're saying this is really important, because it's just like all of the studies on the power of prayer and, people praying at the same time. It's the same thing, that when people come together and focus collectively, huge changes can come about. So they're saying that that's why this portrait appeared, that we'd all shifted. And yeah, it feels like the portrait came into our reality, but the portrait actually was in this reality. We just all, as a group, shifted into another reality.
So in another session, the guides had brought through that we're really just a step away from shifting ourselves into anchoring in this fifth dimensional space. But we're sort of focused on all of the wrong things. We're putting our attention on the wrong things, and that's keeping that vibration, that experience active for us to play out. Can you talk to us a little bit about how we can use our focus and our intention and our frequency to help us move into this fifth dimensional reality that we're so anxious to get to?
Yeah, I mean, they're saying it's so easy, really, but yeah, we do focus on a lot of wrong things. So anytime we're collectively focusing on fear, collectively focusing on anger, collectively getting upset, or even if there's someone just in your frequency nearby who's getting upset or angry, it's like that can affect you. So it's really important that we work on shifting. First, you have to shift yourself, but it's so important that if there is someone in your space, either physically or just, someone you interact with, whether it's online or even if it's something you're watching on the news, right? It's really important. The easiest way to shift, they're saying, is to become the observer. So it's so important to not let your emotions get tied up into things. It's not to say to not have emotions, but to not be overly affected by, there's plenty of things that will come up that are going to be challenging. There are plenty of things that will come up that will bring up anger, that will bring up sadness. But it's important to remember that if someone else is angry about something, sad about something, even happy about something, that is their experience and not your experience. And so even though it's very difficult for people with highly empathic qualities to not react, it's very important. The easiest way to shift is to just step back, and not to not have empathy for someone. it's so important to have compassion and empathy, but to not internalize their emotions and make them yours.
Mm-hmm.
So they're saying that in order to shift, start by being the observer and observe all of this as if it was a movie that you're watching or a play that you're watching. And just know that that's just, it's just a story. And there are so many other stories. And this goes back to timelines, right? If you want to go on a different timeline, you know that we can essentially write a different ending, right? We can write the next chapter. We can write, we can create the next scene. That's what they're saying, is that you get to create the scene. First, you're the observer, and then you're the creator. So once you can observe and know that this is just one version that you're watching, then you can start to create and shift into another version.
So talking about all these different versions and what we think is the mandala, where we see different experiences, are there multiple versions of what's currently playing out? And is there an infinite number of versions, or is there a finite number of versions? And are we shifting between those based on the frequency of the collective and what we're focused on?
First, there is nothing finite. It is
Mhm.
all infinite. So everything that is happening is infinite. So there are infinite versions, infinite. And they're saying that it's all imploding and exploding all at the same time. Imploding, exploding. So all versions are coming together into a pinpoint and then exploding out into infinity. Essentially like a big bang happening in and out constantly. And that's why some people, they're saying, can really feel jarred and have some really extra emotional experiences because they're actually really tapped in to that implosion and explosion feeling, because they haven't stepped into their observer mode. And they're just like feeling it and feeling it and feeling it. And especially just so like tiny mini shifts are happening all the time with this implosion and explosion. And some people who are suffering and feeling, like something's wrong in their life are actually really experiencing that implosion, explosion that's happening just like continuously. And then as far as like shifting a dimension, that's the other thing, is that there's the realities, but the dimensions. So the realities are like, think of all the realities as parallel, but the dimensions as like vertical. So that's what is a little bit different. So there's not just the parallel realities and timelines. Then there's different dimensions within all of those. So it's really a complex system.
How did all of that get created? Is that something that we're just creating as we go, or how did that framework originally come into existence?
Source is so there is only one, and that's source.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. We are all one, and source is the only one.
Mm-hmm.
And source is so complex that like we really can't understand it in our human brain.
Mm-hmm.
But source is creating that implosion, explosion that's just happening like constantly. But then, so yes, you could say it's all source anyway, because we're all source.
Mm-hmm.
All of us are one and part of source. We're just fragmented source.
Yes.
So collective consciousness is creating all of the realities. That is creating, different dimensions, but at the pinnacle, it's all source anyway. But we're all trying to come together back into that implosion.
Right.
So yeah, it's we're all fragmented of these from source. So and that's how the collective consciousness works, is that's how we can tap into this collective consciousness, or even other people's consciousness, if you wanted to zero in on one other person, telepathically, or even tap into them, because we're all part of the same.
Mm.
But that's a lot easier to do in a higher dimension, they're saying.
Right. Is that why maybe people receive, because I know there's a lot of information that comes in. You've got channelers that receive different information. You've got quantum healing hypnosis practitioners that receive lots of different information that are coming through the client. And there's a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of times a lot of differences in the information that's coming through, which can cause a lot of confusion. Could that possibly be that different people are tapping into different realities? Or can you explain why maybe that happens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question. They're saying that, yeah, so part of it is tapping into different, because these perceptions are really different in different realities. But there's also, they're saying that source also sets it up for these fragmented souls to experience differently. So for instance, on this earth, in this current reality that we're in, we have a lot of religions. So you've got a lot of diversity in those religions. You've got your Abrahamic religions, and then they have differences between them, and then you've got Hinduism and Buddhism. You've got different religions that have sprung up, and they have a lot of different information coming through. And then some of it gets distorted a lot, almost like in a telephone game, right? So it's handed down through the ages, and then people interpret it differently, and then their ego comes up and interprets it differently, and people use it as a power structure rather than things like this. So they're saying like the source material, like from source, is truly all the same, but people are interpreting it differently. that when it comes through in our language can't even suffice, it doesn't hold up to really the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying a lot of people are seeking the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth doesn't come in language. Language, they're saying language can't tell the truth, because the truth at the center of it is actually a knowing and a feeling. And that's the only way you can actually experience the truth. It's not
Yes.
through language.
So moving back, I'm just curious. We're talking about these parallel realities, and someone can accidentally step through a portal. If they happen to step through one and they don't come out into an experience that matches theirs, what happens to that person?
They're saying this happens occasionally. And that person is generally labeled as having a mental illness.
Oh.
So they're saying generally when the experience is so different from what they had before, and it doesn't even have to be like crazy different, like, not to use the word crazy as like, but it doesn't have to be that different. It could be like, they're saying there are instances where, you might go through a portal and then, your house is the same and the people around you the same. You have the same family, nothing like that changed, but maybe it's something fairly jarring, like, you don't have the same job anymore, and you thought that that was your job, but you don't work there. Like, nobody's like, no, you don't work here, something like that.
Mm.
And that's when you have, people who start to, they're saying actually, and this is, people who suffer from schizophrenia, people who suffer from multiple personality disorder, somewhat. That can sometimes be a little bit different, but sometimes when they're given that label, that sometimes has to do with having stepped into a portal. Oh, also, they're saying that even though it may feel like an accident and feel like it's jarring to that person to step through that portal and have a very different experience in their life, they're saying that is all part of the plan, though, as part of a lesson to be learned.
Mm.
So some people can adapt to this and just eventually go like, okay, well, I guess that big thing changed in my life. They're saying, though, that, these lessons sometimes have to be learned. And sometimes, yeah, the people who can pass the test per se are the ones who just kind of go with it and go with the flow and don't react too much, because unfortunately they're saying that, people have been, treated unnecessarily, treated with drugs to, change them, when really it may have just been this, portal they shifted into. They're also saying that there are other portals that happen. So like when people are like miraculously cured of cancer, like they were dying and then started healing strategies that can happen when someone has cancer or something similar, right? It can heal over time. There's treatments, physical treatments they can have, there's spiritual treatments they can have, and it can heal over time. And that's not necessarily stepping into a portal, but it's when you see it's like yesterday they were on their deathbed and today they're cancer free. That's another example of a portal where it's like just suddenly, boom, everything they thought they had was gone. Or like, oh, they're bringing in personal things to solidify. So when I was 6, I was really sick. The doctor sent me straight to emergency. Just had a case of pneumonia and then recovered. They're saying that's like an example, like where the tests show you have something, and then like days later they're like, no, actually now the tests aren't showing that. How does that happen? That's an example of going through a portal.
So in one of our first sessions, that Alexandra and I did, we talked about the car accident that she had on the bridge with the ice, and how the second impact actually in one reality did take her life, but because she released herself, she shifted into another lifetime experience and was able to continue her life. Is that moving through a portal, or was that the quantum leaping? Are those similar or different?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely another example of a portal. You can call it a quantum leap. It's kind of like a similar. Yeah, I think again the language isn't as important as,
Right.
and yeah, but it definitely that's another example of a portal where that because that definitely it was a miracle, right? So like when this is another word, right, we use, right, when there's a miracle, that's an example of a portal. So when something happens, you're going through a portal to shift immediately, rather than what you have to understand is you're shifting all the time anyway, just tiny little shifts. But when you go through a portal, it's a big shift, an immediate shift, whereas you might have that shift anyway. Like, someone might shift, like, say, out of depression, right? Like maybe someone's super depressed, they can come out of that one of two ways, right? It would be shifting tiny little shifts over time, taking little baby steps, right? Shifting might take a year, or you can go through a portal and shift in a day.
Just that easy.
Right. Just that easy.
So after we move through this this bigger shift that we feel is coming into the fifth dimension, my understanding is that eventually we will be able to sort of travel through these portals, or travel to other places, other planets, other star systems. Is that done through these portals that we're talking about, or is that something different?
So yes, these portals can work in that way if we choose to have them work in that way. So like the example of the traveler who came through with a passport from a country that didn't exist. That's an example of a portal, traveling through a portal into another reality or dimension. So, and that wasn't on purpose with his example, but there's certainly probably, they're saying there are people doing it right now on purpose. Hold on. They're saying, don't think it can't be done right now because it's happening right now. They're saying there are people who have tapped into this power already, and some are not using it wisely. They're saying the people who aren't using it wisely, fortunately, do not understand it fully, so they can't they're saying they can travel to different realities, but they can't travel interdimensionally. Interdimensionally meaning they can't raise their vibration to go to a higher dimension.
Mhm.
They're the ones who are go to different places and timelines, but they're not, oh, what are they telling me? They're not able to raise their frequency. So they're not using it for the collective good.
Hmm. So they're traveling more in a straight line, not moving up into the higher
Right.
dimensions.
Although they are able to tap into different
Mhm.
timelines, not just timelines as like future, but past.
So is that what we're doing when I've asked this before, but I'd like to hear your perspective. When we're doing these past life regressions, are we simply
Mhm.
tapping in to current experiences and pulling that information in?
Mm.
Or how do you see that?
Right, because all time is happening now, that is why we can see things from the past per se, right? What we think of as the past, but
Right.
then conversely we can also tap into what we think of as the future. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the past or the future. In fact, when I was seeing this little cottage house in the beginning, I can't tell you if it is the past or the future.
Mm-hmm.
Except that it's like on another planet, but also in another dimension.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing, is that we're also experiencing similar reality in different dimensions. And I do believe that cottage house was in a different dimension, like a higher dimension, because of the frequency of peacefulness. They're saying the higher dimensions have more peace frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So, you might be living on a planet that's similar and doing all the things that we would similarly do, right? Like operating like a human being, but not having to deal with things like war on the planet, or, all these things that we're really having to struggle with in this dimension here.
Are we one of the only planets that has experienced such negativity and all of the lower frequency energies that we have? Or are there many places that also experience something similar?
Yeah, they're saying there are actually a lot of different places that have similar lower frequencies that have been brought in. They're saying part of that is for a learning process.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, they're saying, again, go back to the observer. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
Don't think of it in terms of good and bad. Think of it as lessons that are being learned, and that some of these souls need more time to process these lessons, and that some of us, in my lifetimes, I've spent a lot of lifetimes on Earth, for a few different reasons, for not only learning lessons, but also to help raise vibration. But not every lifetime has been very successful in that. So there have been plenty of lifetimes that have just been a bust in raising vibration. that have just been more lesson learning, and but they're saying that there are a number of people, number of souls on earth that are really trying to raise the vibration at this time, in this timeline. They're saying also there are a lot of animal souls doing the same thing.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about that.
They're saying that, one of the reasons that there are pets is to raise vibration, and that these animal souls that are in these pets that we have in our lives are there to raise the vibration because they primarily bring joy. That's their primary purpose, is bringing joy. And so as they're bringing joy, that's raising the vibration of the person who's their pet guardian. And obviously there are some pets and animals that are mistreated. That's a different lesson to be learned from both parties. But they are saying, especially in Western countries, more wealthy countries where people can afford to have pets, that it was important to have more pet souls, like I guess souls that will become pets, come forward in this time, because people needed to practice more compassion and have more joy, because those two things are what will help raise the vibration of the soul and the planet. And then the more they can raise collectively, the easier it will be able to shift into a higher frequency, a higher dimension. So that's their purpose right now. So that's the animal soul purpose that incarnates into pets, is to bring joy, basically ignite compassion and raise vibration.
Beautiful. So recently, Alexandra's sweet dog got sick, and can we find out what was going on with that?
It's not clear what the cause was, but spiritually, Muffet had to do a purge. She needed a purging. And that manifested in a physical purging. She was never in the timeline going to die, although it was very severe. It was meant to keep her pet parents in a present moment, and focus on patience. It was a lesson in patience and faith for the pet parents. But Muffet was always going to be okay. But there was a spiritual purging that happened. Other than that, I'm not really.
So it was purposeful, her going through that illness.
It doesn't, like, it's not clear that she ate anything out of the ordinary. There's nothing coming up on that, just that it manifested physically.
Any healing that she needs today that we can send to her?
Yeah, so I'm seeing a white and pink light, sparkly pink light around Muffet.
Beautiful.
Some really nice heart energy and also some blue light coming in, some calming energy.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying she's healed though. There's physically, and spiritually, she's perfect. She's there's nothing to be concerned about.
Very good. Are there any messages that she wants to bring forward for Alexandra today?
She's just saying, I love you, mommy. She's just peaceful.
So Alexandra has in her last session that we did, we connected into her life as a priestess, and I know that's something that she's interested in connecting with more and learning more about. Is there anything that you can show her today to help her connect more into that, those priestess lives that she's lived, so that she can bring that energy even more so into this life?
Well, and this is why we brought in the summer solstice ritual portal information, as that is an interesting revelation that she should be aware of, as far as rituals creating portals. So that's a transformation act that she should tap into as a priestess. And she should regularly be bringing in this higher knowledge through meditative states, through hypnosis states like this, because there is more to come. I'm seeing a pyramid shape, like a spinning, floating pyramid.
So like a Merkaba, or is it something different?
No, it's like solid. It's just seems like it wants me to be working with like pyramid energy. They're saying connected with the third eye. And also like there's like a snow-capped mountain in the distance that's almost pyramidal shaped. I can't tell what it's trying to tell me though. It reminds me of like the San Gabriel Mountains when they get snow-capped outside of Los Angeles. You can see them sometimes from the city, depending on your viewpoint. But I don't think it's telling me to go there. It's
Do you still see the other pyramid, or has it disappeared?
man, not really. It's just these mountains. They're saying, it's like an analogy. They're saying, you think that you have so far up to go, because when you look at a mountain far away, it seems like it's just going straight up. But the closer you get, and as you start to go up it, it's, on an incline, but you don't realize you're going on an incline. So then eventually, boom, you're at the top, but it didn't feel like you went straight up. So that's the journey, is that it looks formidable, but in fact, you'll eventually rise up slowly but surely.
Very good. So she said that she has all of these ideas that have been coming to her for courses and content to create, and even a temple possibly in the future. What does she need to know about all that?
Just like the mountain, right? You don't reach the top by going straight up. You reach the top by going up on an incline. So step by step, start with the first idea. Don't try to do it all at once. You have to start with the first one. Create the foundation. Just as you're building the mountain, that's what it's like. It's like building the mountain. You don't start with the snow-capped top, right? We start at the bottom and we build up. That's what it's saying anyway.
So everything's just going to come as it comes. Take it one step at a time. So from your perspective, what can you share with us about this sort of chaotic experience that we find ourselves in? Anything you can share?
It will only feel chaotic if you allow it to. So again, it's important to step back as the observer and look at how other things are playing out. And know that even though we are all one, you don't have to encompass others' feelings or others' doings in yourself. So at this time, there is a lot of chaos happening in this reality, but we can't consent to it. It's important not to be complicit with what is happening. That doesn't mean to be in the chaos. You don't want to be in the chaos. You have to be outside of the chaos to be able to correctly analyze the chaos. Because if you're in the chaos, if you're feeling reactive, if you're getting emotional, then you won't be able to see the correct path to go on. You won't be able to create the next timeline. Well, you can create the next timeline, but it won't be optimal.
It'd be more of the same.
Right. Or worse. There are a lot of bad timelines out there. And again, bad is just subjective, right? But there are a lot of more chaotic timelines. There are a lot of timelines that can go down so many different ways. But if we want to create a better timeline, we have to we do have to start tapping into the collective consciousness.
So, with all of these timelines that are created, my understanding, or I've heard that as we shift into the fifth dimension, will we still have all of these different timelines? Will they just be of a higher frequency, a higher vibration? Will we still be creating these multiple timelines, or will it merge more into a more unified experience?
There are still timelines in every dimension.
Okay.
So, except they're saying in very high dimensions, time doesn't operate this way. But in the fifth dimension, we'll still have timelines. So as we go into this process, the timelines will still be there. But what you're saying with the merging of different timelines, it'll only feel like merging of timelines, just as in the example of the summer solstice ritual, where group experienced a different timeline. That's how it will be. Is more groups will experience the same timeline. It won't feel as separate. So it's not necessarily a merging. It's just more groups will be on the same timeline.
Okay.
So maybe in that sense, it would seem like less timelines rather than merging timelines. But there will still be timelines, but just, operating in a different vibration.
That makes perfect sense. There are a lot of states that are they're beginning to roll out some pretty strict mandates. And with all of the mandates that are in some of these areas, she's been deciding where she wants to move to. First of all, what can you tell us about these vaccine mandates? Are they going to just get worse and worse, rolling out to different parts, or are there certain parts of the country that are just meant to have that experience?
They're saying that it really depends on the timeline that you choose to be on. But if we stay on this timeline here, that more mandates will roll out. Will it affect every part of this country? Most likely not on this timeline, but there is a timeline where it affects everywhere.
Oh, wow.
But there, on this current timeline, there will be more filings and big legal battles. And there's a timeline where they just decided, this isn't a good idea anymore. So ideally, we want to shift into the timeline where they're just like, oh, that was an interesting idea, but we're not doing it anymore. And that would come from raising vibration on this planet for sure. But if we stay on the current timeline, like we discussed, it looks like Florida will be good. There's a lot of, south central, southeastern states in this country that will, object to mandates, but still on this timeline, more mandates will be rolling out to major cities. And are these people meant to experience this? And then, absolutely. There are lessons to be learned, and there's people who have already taken these vaccines that have their own lessons to be learned by taking them, and they're not being affected in the same ways. So every person is being affected in a different way, and the ways they are being affected with side effects or no side effects, or possible long-term side effects in future timelines, is actually very dependent on their spiritual lessons.
Mm.
So they're saying that if a person does take these vaccines, that their spiritual vibration has to be high enough, their frequency has to be high enough in order to not get side effects. However, they're saying that if they do get boosters and continue getting boosters, that can change even if they didn't have side effects to begin. So that can change because their frequency can change, throughout. And it doesn't even have to necessarily have anything to do with their thoughts about the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
Like they could be like, oh, it's totally safe, it's totally this, totally that. It has to do with their spiritual frequency and their lifetime lessons.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot. They're saying if they're spiritually high enough, they probably wouldn't have done it to begin with, but if they did, there's a way to transform all of the biology that's happening.
So when we hear, because there's a lot of information going around about, if if you did take the vaccine, whether you realize it's bad or not, you were forced, that will have such an effect on you that it might alter your DNA in a way that you don't ascend, or you have to repeat maybe the third dimensional experience again. Can you shed a little light on that for us?
What they're saying is that nothing in this physical realm can hold you back from ascension.
Mm.
So, but that's not to say, and when I say nothing in this physical realm, I mean nothing like you put in your body.
Okay.
Not necessarily your actions in this physical realm that can hold you back. But anything that you put in your body, whether it's junk food or whatever it is, that's not necessarily going to hold you back, but the action of doing that and the frequency that resonates with can hold you back. Mm-hmm. So what they're saying is that if they're saying it goes back to what is spiritually needed for you. So yes, you may need to repeat some dimensional lifetimes, because there are those who are not the ones who are feeling forced, the ones who are forcing others, the ones who are being forceful, and not necessarily, it's not just the people in charge, right? Government, big pharma. It's people who have jumped on this bully bandwagon is what they're saying. They're saying that there's this bullying, there's this bully factor, there's this anger towards others, that even if they didn't put anything in their body, it's just this anger is going to hold their process back. Mm-hmm. So that's really important. It's to not be in an anger frequency. But they're saying essentially, even if, like, say you consumed the worst foods, you were putting poisons in your body, whether that's in the form of a vaccine or anything else. That isn't necessarily going to hold you back, because your body can heal itself, your body can transform. That's not to say that you should just haphazardly put whatever in your body. You should think first about it, because it is important. It is, they're saying the physical body is connected into the spiritual body. So it is intermeshed. But they're saying this is essentially an illusion anyway. So this physical body can transform, it can heal. If someone took the vaccine, it can heal, but your spirit inside has to heal. And then transformation can begin. But what I'm hearing is that there is a lot of there's a lot of persuasion happening, and people are falling, to it. They're just they're succumbing to this persuasion instead of stepping back as the observer to observe what's really happening, because they're living in a state of fear. And even if you're living, even if everything else is good and you believe everything, you've got everything else is wonderful, but you're living in that state of fear, they're saying living in that state of fear is just as harmful as living in a state of anger. So it's important to shift out of those two frequencies.
So would you say that a person who takes the vaccine and experiences the side effects and or even death from that, is that a choice to go through that experience from a soul's perspective, or is it their vibration was out of alignment or their frequency was out of alignment and that caused that?
All of it is a choice.
Okay.
So whether it's a conscious choice or not. So anytime, they're saying anytime any sickness occurs, whether it's self-inflicted like a vaccine, or whether it's, you caught a virus, any virus, or you get cancer or any kind of malady, you stub your toe. They're saying if you stub your toe or cut yourself, anything, all of that is a choice, so that you have a challenge, so that you have a lesson to be learned, or fail learning the lesson and have to learn it again in another way. So they're saying, yeah, it is all a soul choice, whatever happens with it. So there's also, right, the soul choice where someone can take the vaccine and not receive a side effect. So
will learning lessons get a little bit easier in the fifth dimension? Will it be a little easier for us, or will they still be intense lessons even in the fifth?
they're saying it's all relative.
Okay.
So it's all relative, and there will still be challenges. There are challenges in every dimension.
Good to know. Okay, so let's take a look. Well, first of all, we wanted to ask some questions about Alexandra's mom. She has passed not too long ago, and she feels like there was an experience where her mom may have been at the foot of the bed. Can you confirm that for her?
Yes, she was coming through just for a moment to observe her previous life and where the people in her previous life were at that moment.
And she said she's been having a lot of dreams about her mom, and even her husband's been having those dreams. What are those dreams? What does she need to know about that?
These dreams are interdimensional visits,
Mm.
and also a way for her to let her know that everything's okay. Life in these spiritual realms are much easier. Oh, they're saying also, if you look at everything we've been talking about here with parallel realities coming out this way, dimensions coming out this way, these are frequencies still in saying. Then there are the spiritual dimensions, which are different than these frequency dimensions,
Mm.
which are played out more in physical forms. Then there are spiritual realms. They're saying, think of those as like on a diagonal.
So it's just never ending, is it?
Right.
With all the things that are available and out there. And
Right.
so, what is when a soul crosses over? Is there a specific place that they typically go once they cross over, or are there multiple experiences that they can have?
They're saying it's all individual. It depends on the soul that has crossed over. They're saying in this case of my mom passing, when she floated out of her body, that she was there for a little bit,
Mhm.
like in the hospital room, watching us collect our things and leave, but she also was able to be multidimensional in more than one place at a
Mm.
time. So she was able to snap into the house here and see my dad and the dogs. She was able to be at the hospital, but then she went to another dimension for a while.
That's incredible.
And then she could visit different people as needed.
Mhm. So souls, once they cross over, they're just sort of free to kind of come and go as they please back to the earth
Yeah, and
plane.
it's important to remember that they don't experience time how we do anymore.
Mhm. Okay.
So time is not, it's just not a thing. So like it might go by really fast and sometimes, whereas it's going by slowly for us.
Yes.
But they could snap from one time to the next time. Like they're saying an example of like my mom showing up at the foot of the bed. The next moment for her might be in my dream, but that was like 3 months apart for us. So it just doesn't operate the same way.
Gotcha. So we just wanted to check. I know that it was a difficult experience that Alexandra went through, and just watching her mom and the struggles that she was having. Can we do a body scan and make sure that she's not holding any of that trauma or any of that that needs to be released today?
There is some healing that needs to happen in the neck
Mm-hmm.
and the upper shoulders.
Okay. Can you take care of that for her today?
Yes, moving gold light through the neck
Beautiful.
and into the upper shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And as that healing is taking place, are there any messages that her mom would like to bring forward and share with her today?
She's just saying that Mary will help with fertility, Mother Mary,
Oh, beautiful.
and white and blue light will help with the fertility.
Can we begin to bring that beautiful white and blue light into the body today in this session? Begin
Yes.
that process.
Yes.
Thank you. And if Mother Mary would like to assist with any healing around Alexandra's fertility issues, we would be so honored.
They're saying all you have to do is believe. That's
Mhm.
all. That's all that's needed is belief. And that's the missing part of the equation, is infusing belief in the womb.
So let's just allow that ability to believe that you have the ability to bring these precious babies or a precious baby into this world. And just allow the frequency of belief to surround the womb area, penetrating that part of the body. Just bringing in that knowing that all is truly well. So Alexandra's been going through some fertility treatments. Are these helping her in any way? Or does she need to continue to do those in the future? Or can we heal this for her today so that she can get pregnant when she's ready?
Mm. Yes, healing is commencing.
Mm-hmm.
The DNA is rerouting. And I'm seeing baby feet.
Mm.
Oh, baby feet.
Do these baby feet have a gender?
Mm. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Mm.
So she wanted to know if we could connect with the soul of the baby that she will bring into this world.
Mm-hmm. These baby feet are also, like, I was seeing them in like flesh form, but
Mm-hmm.
now they're like in spirit
Mm-hmm.
form. They're like white light feet, little baby feet.
Is there a soul that has already chosen her to come in for her to be the mother? Has that already taken place or been decided?
Yes, this soul that I'm seeing is currently in a fetal spirit form. So it's beginning its process. They're saying in order for it to prepare to enter the womb. It's getting comfortable being a fetus in the spirit. They're saying that doesn't necessarily happen with all babies, but sometimes they're saying when spirits have been larger and have a lot of energy, that they don't want to contract into a smaller form. And so to prepare, this spirit is contracting in spirit form into a fetal form to feel more comfortable when it's in the womb. They're showing me right now that it's attached. The umbilical cord is attached to my belly.
Oh, wow. So if she's seeing this now, does this mean that this baby is going to come soon? Is there any kind of time frame that you can give her?
Not able to see the timeline, although it keeps saying August, but we just had August. So maybe next August, I don't know. But it's saying that it's attaching, the spiritual umbilical cord is attaching to me so that it can feel comfortable with me. Or maybe vice versa.
So when you say this spirit, the soul has a lot of energy, what does that mean? Does that mean that this is like an old soul or a very high vibrational soul? Or
Yeah, they're saying there's a really high frequency with this spirit, and that it's very advanced, and that it doesn't really want to come into human form.
do any of us really?
Right. They're saying that's why they're taking their time becoming comfortable with the prospect of. Also, it's saying it probably won't be fully inside the womb the entire pregnancy.
Right.
That it will probably float outside of the womb for most of it, because it isn't very comfortable inside of the womb.
And that can happen. They can come in almost right at the last moment. Is that correct?
Yes, they're saying that there are a couple ways, or a few ways really, that babies can come in. There are a variety of ways that, right now this one, like I said, is attached with like a spiritual umbilical cord. So it's spending time with me, but outside of that womb, obviously there's nothing to be inside right now. But that this one will probably come in and out, come and go inside of the womb until it absolutely has to be, born. But they're saying that in other instances, not in this case, but there are plenty of instances where sometimes a spirit decides at the last minute not to be born, and then a different one comes in just at that moment of being born. They're saying also this accounts for stillbirths. That they just decided at last minute, like, no, I'm not doing this again. I know.
That's so hard on the parents.
I know. But that's what they're saying, that's what that accounts for. but sometimes a soul will switch, unruly child or difficult child. That's sometimes when it's like a walk-in at the last minute at the birth, that they weren't really prepared. They didn't spend their time preparing to come to earth, and they just came last minute. It was just like a last minute decision.
So would this soul be, would this be, this soul is brand new to earth, would you say? Has it had any incarnations before? Does that help them prepare? Is that why it's so difficult for these souls to come in?
With this particular one, it's saying that that it has had lifetimes on earth, but it's also had other lifetimes, and it's been in other higher dimensions. So to come down to this dimension is like, yeah, and it
Difficult.
just isn't right. But it's saying it's coming for a purpose. There may be some of its own lessons, but there's a lot of there's reason for it to be here to teach others. So
is there anything that it can share with us about the purpose in this life?
they're saying right now they've been having a really great time, spending time in a spiritual realm and guiding others, that they've worked as a guide, and but they know it's their time to return to earth. But they're just dragging their feet, dragging their baby feet. And
so is this more of the baby? Is this more of it's like, I'm taking my time, I'm coming in when I'm ready? Because Alexandra's been going through the fertility treatments. Is that something that she needs to keep up, or is this baby going to come when it wants, regardless of those treatments?
they're saying it can be either way. It's whatever I choose. They're saying it can be, if it can certainly be with fertility treatments. It won't make a difference. It's going to come when it comes. So it could be they're saying you could just go through a portal if you really wanted to.
Just that easy.
Right. Or, but they're saying the pathway for it to come isn't as important as, yes, a time is more important. Timing is more important. So it has to come at its right time, but also in alignment with the parents' time, so that lessons can be congruent. But it's not really, like I said, that August had come through, maybe being born in August. I'm not sure why it was saying August.
So if she wanted to discontinue the fertility treatments and just work on the belief system and the knowing that the baby is coming, would that be okay for her to do if she chose that?
That choice would be okay, but the belief system would have to be very strong. They're saying it's something that could be tried for a couple months and see how the belief builds. And then if the belief continues to build, then the baby will come regardless. They're saying it, no matter what path is chosen, the baby will come.
Okay, beautiful. Are there any messages that he or she would like to share with Alexandra today?
They're just saying, ready.
I think we cut out for that whole what you
Mm.
said. The internet's been sort of
Oh,
it catches a little bit, and I don't hear you for a minute. Can
yeah.
you repeat what the message was or what they
All
said?
all that was coming through was ready the womb and I will appear.
Okay. Is there any way to know if there will be multiple souls that will be coming into her life? Is anyone else getting ready at any point?
At this time, there's not another soul in line at
Okay.
this time.
Mm-hmm.
There may be. They're also saying that this current soul has the possibility to split.
Oh, so possible twins.
But we won't know for some time. Now they're saying that there is a strong possibility because this soul has so much energy.
It needs to split, possibly.
It might, yeah. They're
So
also saying that when it incarnates, it will be very energetic.
that was my next question.
Yeah.
Will it be a high energy baby?
Yes.
So she probably should take this time to get some rest, huh?
Right. Yeah, it's a really large energy. I clearly see the energy. There's so much energy that the spirit form, like, and maybe it will be because there's the spirit fetal form
Mhm.
that's literally like here and attached with an spirit umbilical cord.
Yeah.
But then there's a huge extra part of it. It's not all in this spirit fetal baby.
Mhm.
It's a huge energy.
That's incredible.
Mhm.
Anything else she needs to know about this baby that you'd like to share with her today?
They're just saying right now you should cultivate the energy of the fetal baby, the spirit baby, and know that it's basically this energy is with you right now, almost operating as a guide because that had been the spirit's function for some
Mm.
time. Not for me personally,
Mhm.
but that it was working as a guide. So if you need guidance, it can provide it, because right now it's just here for me at this time and my husband.
Mhm.
So and anyone around us, actually. They're saying because this energy is so big
Mm.
that it really can affect anyone in our household or anyone we know. So there's just a lot of energy flowing. Is huge energy.
Wow.
I didn't even realize it was here.
So you can probably begin to connect
Right.
with it now. Mhm. Thank you for that. We want to check because in her first session, we did a lot of work on the endometriosis that she's dealt with, and she had a cyst. She's had surgery on the cyst, and it was reduced, but she feels like it's growing back. Can we take a look at that area and see what's going on there?
At this time, that the endometrioma is there on the right ovary. However, it's small enough where it's not impeding too much. There are still some lesions on the abdominal wall, but they're saying this can be healed. And this won't prevent pregnancy. They're saying actually through the pregnancy, a full healing actually can occur.
Mm.
Um,
Is that because of the energy of the baby coming in or something different?
They're saying, yeah, that the energy of the baby will be very healing.
Mm-hmm.
But having just the pregnancy alone will take energy away from the endometrium. They're saying at this time, though, the main thing is to keep the cyst at a small level.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying that can be achieved with, staying on proper diet, exercise. But they're saying you really need to start doing the belly dancing. Because it will help enhance the fertility. They're saying also, don't be afraid to go outside of the guidelines of the fertility clinic sometimes, because your intuition will know better what to do.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying intuitive eating, intuitive exercising, just it's important at this time to really be guided by your intuition more than what anything medical has to say.
Very good. Can we begin to bring some of that healing energy into that area and just allow any of that to receive that healing today to help her?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. So as you scan through the body, is there anywhere else that we need to take a look at? Any other issues that she's having? Any blocks or anything that needs to be released?
They're just reducing some of that blood flow to that cyst.
Okay.
But not too much. They don't want to reduce it too much because they want to make sure that ovaries have enough blood flow to produce eggs.
Okay. So we'll just allow the guides to do what they feel is appropriate today. So she wanted to, oh, did you have, okay, I thought you were going to say something. She wanted to see if she could just connect in with her husband's guides. He's been dealing with some issues, and she wants to know how she can support him and to understand if there's anything that she needs to know or anything that we can do from this session to assist him.
They're saying they've been trying to get through to him, but he's been resistant. They're saying that they've been sending healing, especially with money issues. So they've been sending healing, and it started to work. They said it was really working. It was shifting. But then, he shifted back for a minute. It was like, but they were like, oh, good. He started to listen. But then, he let doubt get in the way.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that we can do or would his higher self, his guides, allow us to bring any energy into his body to release some of those blocks for him today?
Yeah, they're saying that they need him to be clear
Mhm.
and open, and that meditation will help. And also learning about this spirit baby
Mm,
will be helpful.
that'll help.
Mhm. So, yeah, they're just asking for him to ask for more connection.
Very good. And any messages from his guides or higher self that Alexandra needs today that can just help her to support him?
They're saying just be patient like we are. They're like patience and continue to be compassionate. And, to just let him know that if he can ask for more connection, that it'll become easier.
Are there any final messages or are we complete today?
I think the main message today is that language isn't as important. It's just something that we humans rely on.
Mm,
And if and when we can raise our vibration enough, we can just operate from a place of peace and knowing and feeling,
mm.
and not even have to use these clunky words.
I've been getting that a lot lately in sessions. Our words. It'll be nice when we can communicate in a more telepathic way, won't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. I'm going to begin to bring Alexandra back. So we just want to say thank you to the guides. May I ask who we were speaking with today? Who of Alexandra's guides?
We had a collective today along with her higher self, as well as this new spirit baby.
Mm, beautiful. We send you so much love and gratitude for bringing forward some incredible information.